Hello and welcome to Project Justice. I am Utuba Moran. Nigeria's human rights status recently came under the spotlight when the international human rights body Amnesty International Nigeria released a report detailing cases of rights abuses from extrajudicial killings to what it calls unimaginable atrocities committed against hapless citizens. It specifically alleged that Nigerian security forces killed over 150 peaceful protesters within the period from August 2015. The protesters are said to be those campaigning for an independent state of Biafra in Nigeria's southeast. It further claimed the report is based on interviews with at least 200 people and evidence from photographs and about 87 videos, some of which have been trending on social media for some time now. The report referred to the Biafra Remembrance Day in May 2016 and alleged that about 60 persons were shot and killed in Onitsha, Anambra State alone. On Project Justice this week, we hear directly from the Nigerian representative of Amnesty International and also the response of the Nigerian military authorities, who are the primary state actors fingered in the report. First, here are some top news from the Judiciary and Human Rights Desk.
Justice Walter Onoge has been sworn in as the substantive Chief Justice of Nigeria. He had earlier been confirmed by the Nigerian Senate. Before his confirmation, the judge emphasized that it would be impossible for anyone to pocket the judiciary in Nigeria, pointing out that such move will mark the end of the nation's existence. At his swearing-in by acting President Yemi Osibanjo, Justice Onoge reaffirmed he will ensure the independence of the judiciary. A Yola High Court has sentenced former governor of Adamawa State, James Ngilari, to 5 years imprisonment without option of fine for financial mismanagement. Trial judge Justice Nathan Musa, however, discharged and acquitted former secretary to the state government Andrew Welye and former finance commissioner Jonathan Sander. Bala Ngilari was found guilty of violation of the Adamawa State procurement law, where he authorized the purchase of 25 units of Toyota Corolla vehicles at the cost of 167.8 million naira meant for commissioners. A prosecution witness in the asset declaration trial against Senate President Bukola Saraki says the Code of Conduct Bureau has no case against Saraki and that the trial was instigated from outside the Bureau. The witness Samuel Madujemu said this while on the cross-examination by Defense Counsel Kanu Gabi. The witness said Saraki was not interviewed during investigation in 2015 because he had earlier made statements on oath in his asset declaration form. The trial continues on the 21st of March 2017.
And now to one of our featured interviews with the representative of Amnesty International Nigeria. The allegations of extrajudicial killings against security agencies. Thank you very much, Esther, for agreeing to speak with us. Your last report, which documented killings about 150 Nigerian protesters in the southeast of the country, has generated some intense controversy. Why should Nigerians believe the content of that report?
Thank you so much, Utibe, for having me on the show. Let me take you back to the issue of the killings that you just raised. We did an intense research and documented the killing of IPOB members on not just one occasion, not just two, but on several occasions where they gathered to have a peaceful protest. We documented the killings in Nkpo. We also documented killings at Onitsha Bridge. We also documented killings at Asaba. So what we're saying is that the military extrajudiciously executed IPOB protesters who were unarmed, who were just there to carry out their peaceful protest. Because at Amnesty, we believe that a peaceful protest is a human right. And that is why we have continued to call on the Nigerian government to ensure that they conduct investigations, independent, impartial ones, into exactly what took place.
Some persons have tried to discredit the report, especially the Nigerian government, saying the report was based on hearsay evidence, because you yourself have admitted that you dealt with about 87 videos and witness testimonies and photographs as well from the location where some of these alleged killings and rights abuses took place. How do you respond to that?
What I'll say is that before we put out any research, we always ensure that our research findings go through a quality assurance process. At the same time, we do a lot of forensic examination of what we gather when we go out on the field, because we have our researchers out there on the field who carry out this research. So we're not just basing findings on hearsay, not just on witness testimonies, but as well as forensic evidence.
The Nigerian government, the military in particular, have accused the Amnesty International of not seeking their point of view of your investigations and the documentations you made before going public with your report, and have said that alone discredits what the report tends to portray.
This is not the first time that we are issuing reports about human rights violations, not just in Nigeria. Let me remind you that Amnesty works in over 156 countries across the globe, where we publish reports based on evidence from our findings that we gather from our research. So it's not just an issue of allegations, raising allegations against the military, but I think it goes beyond that to say that Nigeria needs to live up to their international obligations regarding human rights situations in Nigeria.
Why should the contents of these reports matter to Nigerians, especially in the context of human rights, protection of those rights, and ensuring that no Nigerian life is lost?
Let me reiterate that the vision of Amnesty International is to ensure that every human being enjoys their rights to life, their rights to peaceful assembly, their rights to adequate and affordable housing, because we work not just on extrajudicial killings, as you raised, we also work across issues of housing rights, ensuring that there are no forced evictions, also ensuring that we seek corporate accountability. We worked in the Niger Delta. So it's not just about the military, it's not just about IPOB killings. We work across various human rights issues, and that's why I think our report should matter to Nigerians, because it's not just about the military, it's not just about IPOB killings, but it's about ensuring that every Nigerian enjoy their human rights.
Let me draw your attention back to the numbers which you have mentioned in the report, 150. I spoke to a military source on that, and he says there's no way 150 people can be killed, and the international media does not go berserk on that. That is not just possible to kill that amount, that number, without people hearing or an outrage being generated by it. And they're questioning just how you got to that number, 150.
Utibe, we don't make up numbers at Amnesty. What we do is speak to witnesses. We speak to eyewitnesses. We hear their testimonies, and based on also the materials that we find out there on the field, we try to cross-examine to look at the facts that we have, to look if it corresponds to the testimonies, witnesses. We even go as far as using satellite images. Of course, we live in an age of technology. So we go an extra mile to do all of that quality assurance checks. And let me assure you, we could only mention that figure because those were the ones that we were able to verify.
Can you also draw us to some of the specifics mentioned in that report, or some of those very, very touching eyewitness testimonies, or other people who probably had saw what happened, what they told you, and how you were able to verify the information they gave you?
I'll give you two examples. We interviewed the family of one Chuks Obasi, who was picked up from his house by plainclothes men last year, and he was shot in the leg and taken away in a vehicle that, of course, shows that it was the security forces that owned the vehicle. Till date, Chuks Obasi has not been found by his family. He's an IPOB supporter. I will raise also the issue of a young man who we interviewed in a video. I don't know if you have seen the video, who had acid burns all over his body. He was one of the IPOB protesters who went out to the peaceful protest. He was arrested. He was picked up in a vehicle, taken to an undisclosed location. They poured acid on his body, waiting for him to die. It was by sheer luck that he was able to find his way out of that place, and we spoke to him. So, I mean, you don't make up facts. That's why you call it a fact. So, before we put out any report out there, we have our evidence to show that what we say is really factual, and that's why we are asking that the Nigerian government needs to scale up efforts in terms of addressing the issue of impunity in this country. I mean, the issue of unlawful arrests of people, enforced disappearances, torture in military detention facilities, not just the military, also in the police. Last year, we released a report on torture in SARS detention facilities across Nigeria. And we've tried to speak out because, let me tell you, Nigerians know what exactly is happening out there, and that is why Amnesty is always speaking out. We beam the light on human rights violations committed by not just the state authorities, but even non-state actors. So we are not partial in our reporting. We are not biased in whatever we put out. What we'll say is that if anyone has anything that contradicts the factual evidence that we have, then of course, there is an open door policy that we operate. We are open to talk about these issues.
Did your report also draw specifics to particular security agencies of state who engage in one act of rights violation abuses or the other?
As I mentioned earlier, our work cuts across board in terms of human rights violations. We're not just focusing on the Nigerian military. We have issued reports that talk about torture in the police detention facilities. We have even gone as far as speaking to authorities. For example, I'll give you an instance in Lagos State. We've also carried out a research which looked at the forced evictions of over 30,000 people in waterfront communities in Lagos State. So it's not about picking on a specific security agency, but as I said earlier, it cuts across various human rights issues in Nigeria.
Is Amnesty International Nigeria also worried that the Nigerian government, as much as it has denied the content of this report, has yet to set up its own independent investigation to some of the claims and petitions that have been made by the Nigerian people in this affected region?
I would say our responsibility is to beam the light on these human rights violations and call for accountability and call for transparency. Because the Nigerian government needs to live up to the expectations of the obligations in the international community. Because at this day and age that we are in, Utibe, you will agree with me that it's essential for Nigeria to show in practical ways that they care about the human rights of Nigerians.
Critic for me, if you may, your perception, the perception of Amnesty International on the status of Nigeria's rights, protection and enforcement mechanism.
Let me say that it's work in progress. We are not there yet. And that's why we are calling on the government to step up their commitment to protecting and promoting human rights. Beyond fact-finding, beyond pointing out human rights violations, there's also need for transparency. There's need to bring people to justice. If you look at the criminal justice system in Nigeria, you will agree with me that a lot needs to be done in terms of the kind of space that we give to impunity. We've seen people who have committed atrocities, committed crimes against humanity, still walking free on our streets until Nigeria steps up, until the Nigerian authorities sit up and wake up to the realities that we daily face and ensure that people who violate human rights don't go scot-free. I think then we still have a long way to go in this country.
Esai Kubaja, thank you so much for your time. Well, the Nigerian military will not take such allegations. I sat down with the Acting Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Rabe Abubakar, and he denied the complicity of the military in any of the allegations contained in the report. This report is based on investigations, collected figures and data from people on ground in the places in which they are focusing on. What part of this investigation do you particularly have a problem with?
In the Paul report, there is no iota of proof in what they said. And switching from inside, as an insider, you cannot ask people who are victims and who are the victims. Who are the victims? Who are those victims? Why were they where they were? And what were their motives, for instance? Are you saying that we should allow insecurity to perpetuate itself? Are we saying that we should condone or create a situation where the country becomes an animal farm? This is a sovereign nation. This is, a dignified nation for that matter. But Amnesty International, as I'm speaking with you, has never one day approached the military hierarchy to find out what we are doing. You understand? So you cannot just make a report and expect it to be accepted by a key stakeholders that you deliberately refuse to go and interface with him.
The Nigerian military has been deployed to support security, other security agencies in communities and states where there is insecurity. How does the military interact with the people, especially where situations tense up and perhaps become very provocative?
Nigerian military world over are the last line of defense in the chain of defenses in the country setup or in the security architecture of the country. We have other layers before the military, and I believe other agencies have been doing extremely well. Where the military comes in, or where the military will come in, that is when the situation has degenerated beyond the containment of the particular security agents that are saddled with the internal security issue of the country. Okay? In our own case, the Constitution too allows or permits us, to give a support. We refer to it as aid to civil authority. Especially where a situation becomes completely out of control or out of hands of other security agencies. So, because this is our country, we must ensure that there is adequate security, there is adequate, peace. Military, when they come in, we employ services of what we call minimum post. Okay, minimum post is a type of post that you can only use arsenal where it becomes extremely expeditious, where your life and the lives of your men are threatened by the belligerents. Then when that happens, definitely you must apply the minimum post to ensure that you protect yourself, you protect the innocent citizens, and equally contain the activities of the belligerents. And this does not mean that we don't shoot. You understand? We don't shoot. We shoot at when the situation becomes extremely serious.
What is typically the nature of such minimum force?
Well, it could be crowd dispersal, which will have a lot of activities that are involved in use of tear gas, okay, to disperse the crowd. You understand? Especially when the crowd are armless. But when the crowd are equally armed to the teeth, attacking security agencies, killing police, even soldiers and other innocent citizens, then you expect or you allowed or you condone this kind of activities, because you don't want people like Amnesty to say you are abusing human rights. Human rights can only be protected if the person is innocent, not confrontational, not armed to the teeth. Then you have all the right to protect his integrity, his dignity, and human rights as a citizens. But when citizens decided, to carry arms, sophisticated arms for that matter, which he can kill. And you are empowered, you are legally empowered to disarm such kind of human beings to ensure that he does not create a situation where the country will plunge into total insecurity.
While you may dismiss the Amnesty International reports, there may be other allegations, or there have been other allegations made against officers of the Nigerian military. Has the military on its own taken up some of those allegations and conducted an independent investigation on them, or do you just dismiss them as mere allegations?
Not at all. You know, we accept, you know, concrete criticisms that will add value to what we do. You understand? When we have any allegations, definitely we subject it to forensic, to investigation, just like what we have done about, in recent times, in the case of the video that has been going around in Maiduguri, that some soldiers killed this and that. We investigated, and we discovered that those, videos emanated from not only from the country itself. You understand? So, and just of recent, there were some cases, isolated cases I can call it, where soldiers molested some people, where we picked them up, and some of them were dismissed from service, some were jailed. You understand? So as to serve as deterrent to those who may think because they are wearing uniform, it's a guarantee for them to molest anybody. Nigerian armed forces has transformed beyond the thinking of our citizens. Okay, we are now Nigerian armed forces, Nigerian armed forces people. You understand? Because we believe it is only when you submit yourself, to the not just political class, but even the citizens, that you can get what you want to get, especially in terms of information and what have you. So any cases of that requires investigation, we do investigate. The last time a 10-year-old child was molested in Maiduguri, and as I'm speaking with you, that man, that soldier who molested him was dismissed having served after serving for 32 years. You understand? Recently, an armed robber was arrested, in one of the checkpoints, and they handed over to the soldiers. The soldiers subjected him to unbearable or indecent, punishment. At the end of the day, the report reached to us, and we picked those guys in the checkpoint. And as I'm speaking with you, they are no more in service. You understand? Just of recent, see what happened. So it's not in any way acceptable. It's against our ethics, our professional ethics and conduct, to subject any of our citizens and those who are domiciled here, to unacceptable, engagements or unacceptable disciplinary measures.
The recent incident of the two officers, I think somewhere in Indonesia, who severely beat up a crippled man, of course, you have disciplined those two officers, has raised up some questions that has been in the minds of so many Nigerians in the past. Is it wrong, or is it prohibited for civilians to wear army camouflage?
Well, let me begin by saying the whole episode was unfortunate and is not the representations of Nigerian armed forces conduct, either privately or officially. But what happened is manifestation of individuals' conduct, which as human beings we react differently in situations. Okay? The right thing to have done was, you see this man in uniform, you pick him up and hand him over to the police. That's the right thing. Because he's a civilian. Okay? Coming back to whether it is prohibited or not, it is really prohibited. There are so many, prohibitions, especially now that people of dubious characters, criminals, use uniforms to perpetuate crimes. We have seen it in so many plans. We have read it on so many, situational reports and intelligence reports. You understand? So to come against in this kind of thing, there must be an enactment, a law that will ban people from using the uniform.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for coming too. Thank you very much.
Defense spokesman Brigadier General Rabi Abubakar. Well, the fact remains that a number of protesters were attacked by armed security agents. The controversy, it seems, has to do with the number and extent of the attacks. The government itself admits it had to take all necessary measures to maintain the peace and stability. But to what extent did those measures cross the lines of dignity of the human person and human rights norms? That's what the authorities have vehemently denied. However, the government, on its part, or the National Human Rights Commission, has yet to independently investigate the claims of the victims or their families, leaving several questions begging for answers. Project Justice indeed wishes to know the answers. Well, that's the show. Remember, you can reach us via Twitter. Our handle is @ProJusticeLive. Also watch us on YouTube by clicking on Project Justice. Like us too on Facebook. From the entire production crew, I am Mutaba Moran. See you next week.